What happened to the water in Flint, Michigan could happen to the water anywhere. And it's more likely to happen if you're a person of a certain color or with a certain income. Just look around and see who's most affected.
Want us to get out the city. Just tell us the truth. They want us to get out the city. I know that they do. They want us to get out the city. Just tell us the truth.
Michigan had a solution called emergency managers.
Now he's been appointed by the governor to turn around Flint's finances. Mike, welcome.
These managers can make cost-cutting measures without the normal political procedure.
I think what we have to do is look at the expense side first. There could be services that we can no longer provide in the city.
And they decided the city could save money on water. Flint would stop buying water from Detroit and join a new regional water system. And as a temporary measure, Flint would use water from the Flint River. The switch happened in 2014.
Here's the Flint.
And who decided to do this exactly is under intense debate. But regardless of blame, the story gets worse. Residents saw and tasted the dirty water and started complaining.
Water's brown, has a bad odor. I'm afraid to even feed it to my cat or my dogs.
We should not have to pay for the water. It's nasty.
But the city claimed federal tests showed the water was safe.
Governor Snyder may not intentionally said, let's poison the blacks and the poor people, but the intersection of race and class cannot be ignored here. Everything that happened in Flint, Michigan points to environmental racism.
Many people have wondered over the past few months, why it is that what's happening in Flint has had such a disproportionate impact on African Americans and the poor. And I think that's really where my research comes into play, because a lot of what I've studied in Flint and written about explains how it is that African Americans and the poor have become concentrated in cities such as Flint, due in particular to racially biased housing and urban development policies that have essentially allowed whites in the city to depart and move to the suburbs, while containing African Americans and the poor inside of cities. And that is, in a nutshell, why it is that the crisis in Flint has had a disparate impact on communities of color.
This crisis is bigger than Flint, Michigan. Think about all the areas where people of color live and where poor people live. Think about how gentrification is affecting all of us across the U.S. and pushing certain people either out of their city or allowing their voices to be unheard. It's up to all of us to do our part to make sure that our voices are heard, that we're safe, that we have the right politicians in office, and that everyone knows who to go to and where to go in case there's something happening in the water, in the air, or anything else.
Flint residents are to gain a measure of justice from what's happened. We also need to address some of the broader structural inequities that city residents have endured over the past few generations. That means the city residents need more jobs, more investment in education, of course, investment in an all-new water delivery infrastructure, and also investment in lifelong medical care for all those who suffered from lead exposures.
Well, I think it's a really interesting example that our policies that are designed to keep water safe are not infallible. So there are problems that arise. There's this problem that happened where the water was corrosive and led to lead being stripped out of the pipes in Flint. In my own community, I think we have different issues. In an area where we have a lot of agriculture and pesticides that do enter our drinking water sources, to not have MCLs, that's the maximum contaminant level for all pesticides, is a really big risk. In addition, in this country, we have no safe level or maximum level for total exposure to compounds like pesticides. So even if we are exposed to small amounts of many pesticides, those amounts add up and can have deleterious effects on our bodies.
More importantly, as individuals, we need to be aware of what's going on in our water before we drink it, before we bathe in it, before we give it to our children or the elderly. Don't think that this situation is just a random occurrence. Look around your own city and pay attention to who's getting help, who's suffering, whose calls are being answered, and who's making decisions. Look on the internet and figure out what local and national organizations you can contact in case you notice something wrong with your water. After all, it's only your health that you're worried about.
Well, I think one step is that people can learn more about where their water comes from, to know what types of compounds might be in their water, and that you can test your own water, or you can request reports from your local water provider about the quality of that water. In fact, the EPA mandates that all water providers be able to provide water quality data to the customers. So I would definitely look at those reports. They're called a consumer confidence report. So those are available to the public so you can know if there are problems or levels of certain substances in your water. And I think part of having clean drinking water is preventing source water, so our rivers, streams, and groundwater, from being contaminated in the first place. And so if people want to become advocates or more informed and active in their communities to support clean drinking water, I think part of that is also protecting our natural rivers and streams and making sure that we aren't having hazardous runoff from agriculture or industry, so healthier stormwater management systems. These all come together in an integrated way to protect our source water as well as our drinking water.
Maybe it's not lead poisoning, but things are already happening in New York, New Jersey, and even right here in California. Could your drinking cup be next?